Alright guys, today we are going to be reacting to Trump skyrocket in new 2024 election polls. Let's jump in.
According to recently released 2024 election polls, he's tied up Harris in Virginia, he is dominating in the swing states, and he even leads nationally, according to the New York Times. And so today, we're going to be taking a look at the updated electoral map as a result of these developments. And so before we get to the polls, we're going to fill in the solid states for both candidates just so that we can narrow down this map. We're going to begin with the Harris states. She's going to win California, Hawaii, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and the 1st District of Maine. While for Trump, he is easily going to carry Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas.
Man, we have to do something about that 2nd district. We should not be playing games like this. We should not be playing this game. Just put it all as winners take all. Man, don't do this.
Arkansas, Louisiana.
But then all of a sudden they get it can happen like both candidates get 269, then we have to go to Congress, and then you know what I'm saying? Like, it should not be like that.
Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, South Carolina, and Alaska. The former president takes an early lead already with 125 electoral votes. Taking a look at this new Virginia poll now, Donald Trump ties up Kamala Harris in a poll of 1,000 adults, both candidates at 45.
Look at that. That's crazy, man. Virginia with Kamala Harris running against Trump, 45-45. I was never expected that. Personally, I thought Virginia was moving red, but it's not this close. I was with Biden in the ballot, I would just believe it. But Kamala Harris, nah.
5 percentage points. This is devastating for the Harris campaign. It's a state that Joe Biden carried by 10.1% just 4 years ago. Today, she isn't even leading in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Wow.
And so this is going to be a hotly contested state. Virginia has essentially become a swing state at this point. It's just as competitive as other states like Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Michigan.
Yeah.
And considering that Virginia does have 13 electoral votes, it is going to be pretty important. Donald Trump now has essentially added Virginia onto the battlegrounds map. Now, in this poll, there was also a survey of registered voters, and that had Kamala Harris leading by 2%. But still, 2% is within the margin of error. And considering Biden's double-digit victory here 4 years ago, she is absolutely not where she needs to be. What's more is that in 2021, when Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, won the governorship against Democrat Terry McAuliffe, Youngkin was leading at the very end, but only at the very end.
Wow.
The entirety of the 2021 election cycle, Terry McAuliffe was on track to become the state's next governor. But in the end, Glenn Youngkin surged in the polling and eventually won the election. And that is what we see with Donald Trump every single time.
That's crazy.
He always polls significantly better at the very end of a campaign season in late October and early November. He always polls much better then than he does in September. And if things continue the way that they have in the past, Donald Trump could be on track to flipping the state of Virginia as a whole. And if that happens, Kamala Harris has absolutely zero chance at becoming the next president. We also have a new poll from the New York Times, and it shows Donald Trump leading against Kamala Harris, according to 2,400 registered voters.
That's a nice sample, too.
8th poll in a row where Trump has led, according to the New York Times, which is a very left-leaning pollster. In fact,
and this right here, that's the main thing right here. New York Times is such a leftist propaganda newspaper. Trump calls it the failing New York Times. Just imagine, nobody watch it. The people that watch it, you live in Manhattan. These people from Manhattan, they're not even represent the country itself. And he's leading.
One of the most inaccurate of 2020 just because they overestimated Joe Biden so much. If the former president wins the popular vote or even comes close to winning the popular vote, he is going to become the next president. Trump could lose the popular vote by 1, 2, even 3 percentage points and still get to 270 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has to win by at least 3 to 5 percentage points. If she can't do that, she's not going to
She's
win.
gone,
And
yeah.
currently, it doesn't seem like she will. And so coming back to the map, we're going to fill in some of the likely states that Harris or Trump are going to win by 7 to 15 points. Remember,
Okay.
a solid state is going to go to either candidate by 15 points or more. And so Kamala Harris is still going to win Washington and Oregon, just not by the virtually 20-point margins that Joe Biden won the state by in 2020. These states might be decided by...
I just don't. These are two states that I will never understand, bro. You literally have communists taking over your state and you still voting blue. You're dumb as a rock, man. You're dumb as a rock.
around 10 to 15.
You're dumb as
We
a
also
rock, man.
have Illinois. 19 electoral votes will easily go to the vice president, but again, just by under 15 points. We also have Colorado. New polling shows Harris leading by just above that double-digit mark. She is not going to do better than Joe Biden in 2020. Joe Biden carried the state by nearly 14 points. There's no way Harris even gets close to that. She is also the favorite in New York and New Jersey, although these are two states where Democrats have been embroiled in scandal.
Yeah.
In New York, we, of course, had Andrew Cuomo and his resignation as a result of sexual harassment allegations. And then the new current governor.
And I was checking some New York stat, and New York has been moving red for the last 12 years, folks.
Kathy Hochul, along with Mayor Eric Adams, both of them are very unpopular. And of course, in New Jersey, we had Senator Bob Menendez, who was convicted multiple times for bribery.
Let's see what
Also,
happens.
Delaware in the likely blue category, this state is simply not as liberal as many of its neighbors. And for Trump, his likely states are going to give him a significant boost. We're going to begin up in Iowa and Ohio, two states that were pretty competitive in the 2020 election, or at least people thought so. Because in 2016, Trump flipped both Iowa and Ohio,
Wow.
winning them by nearly double-digit margins. This came after 8 years of Obama dominance in the states. And in 2020, Democrats thought they could flip both of these states back. According to the polling, Trump was only supposed to win in both of these states by 1%. In fact, there are many points in time where Joe Biden actually led in the
Wow, that's
polling
crazy.
in these two states. But in
And
the
they're doing that same mistake. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. They're oversampling. I don't know what their sampling is. It's just so confusing. How in the hell is Trump winning these states so big? I just don't get it.
Trump won Iowa and Ohio by virtually the same margins as he did in 2016. And so this time around in 2024, there's no doubt Trump is the easy favorite in both of these lower Midwestern states. Before we continue, 81% of you guys are not subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And join my Discord server to chat with me personally. Link in the description below. Next up, in Texas, the Lone Star State was also thought to be competitive, especially because of liberal-leaning polls that have the state within the margin of error. In fact, Trump was only supposed to carry the state by 1%, just like in Iowa and Ohio. But in the end, he won the state by nearly 6 points. There was never really any doubt, there never should have been any doubt, that Texas was going to go red. Joe Biden never stood a chance there, but the Democratic polls and all of their rhetoric made it seem like
And 5 points, that's a lot in Texas. That's millions of votes.
Texas could actually flip blue. And yes, the state generally is shifting to the left, but for a Democrat to win a presidential election in Texas, we're not going to see that for at least a couple of decades. It is such a large state, and having to flip those millions of voters required for Democrats to win here, that is going to take a very long time. And by the point that happens, the Midwest will have already transformed into a Republican stronghold. And so what we're seeing generally in the country is that the Sun Belt is shifting to the left, while the Midwest shifts to the right. And so in Texas, the state is currently going to be likely red. In the future, the elections here would definitely get more competitive, but that is not going to be an issue for the GOP for quite a while. We also have...
They have to spend more time there, man. You have to lock it in, man. Pass abortion laws that are very, very conservative. Make sure you put God in schools. Make sure you do legislation that is very unattractive to liberal. That's how you keep a state red, man. Why these people cannot do this? Go Louisiana. Put the 10 Commandments in every school. Put a cross in every school. And that's how you keep those states red. That's how you keep it red.
Florida, and at this point, compared to 2020, Florida is
Give me one
basically
second,
a free 30 electoral votes, because 4 years ago, Trump didn't have the Sunshine State in the bag. Florida was supposed to be one of the most competitive states in the country, and that really did make sense. In 2012, Florida was the only tilt state on the map. When Barack Obama won states like Iowa and Ohio, he barely won Florida.
Wow.
In 2016, Trump wins Florida again by a tilt margin. It was still highly competitive. But then in 2020, nobody thought that Joe Biden would do worse than Hillary Clinton in the state. Trump actually improved from his performance against Clinton. And so as a result of this, Florida is now seen as significantly more conservative, especially compared to where it was 4 and 8 years ago. In 2022, we saw Ron DeSantis get reelected by a 20-point margin in the gubernatorial election. So Florida is a red state now. It's probably not going to go to Trump by more than 15 points, but it might go to him by around 7 to 10. But there's no doubt that he is going to win. These 30 electoral votes, which were not at all a guarantee for him in the last election, they are now a virtual guarantee for the GOP and in turn for Donald Trump. We also have the 2nd District of Maine that is going to be likely red as well. And so now we're left with just 12 states worth a total of 128 electoral votes. It is these states that are...
I'm paying attention a lot. I know he's going to win Georgia and North Carolina, no problem. And I'm paying a lot of attention to Virginia, Minnesota. Those are the 2 states that I want him to flip, man. If he flips one of those 2 states, folks, he's sending a strong message to the nation. We don't want more liberalism. Minnesota's super liberal, man. If he can flip Minnesota, that's it. That's it.
Are actually going to decide the election. Without them, no candidate can realistically get to 270. And Trump, he is already just 51 electoral votes away, while Kamala Harris isn't even at 200. And now looking at the latest swing state poll from Emerson College, these are amazing numbers for the former president, especially considering that Emerson College is a left-leaning pollster. They heavily overestimated Joe Biden in 2020, and that is why these numbers are so good for Trump. He leads in 3 of the 7 swing states. In an additional 3, the candidates are tied. And if you have a tie in a state, Trump is probably going to win, as he is still underestimated in polling. The only one swing state where Harris has a lead in is Michigan, where she leads by just 1%. This is appalling for the vice president. She is doing unbelievably bad in many of these states that she needs to win. She must win Wisconsin. She must win Pennsylvania. If she can't even lead in the polling there, she is not going to win. Joe Biden led in the polling in Wisconsin by 8%. He won it by 0.6. He led in Pennsylvania by 6%. He won it by just 1. Where Kamala Harris is right now in relation to both Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Biden in 2020, she isn't even close to where she needs to be. And so we're now going to fill in the lean states that are going to be decided by margins between 2 to 7%. These are going to be very, very competitive states. We're going to see a lot of campaigning in all of these states. And starting off with the lean Harris states, we have New Mexico. This is definitely a state where she is vulnerable as Hispanic voters continue to shift to the right. And in the future, Democrats are just going to have a harder and harder time winning the state. But that probably isn't going to be too much of an issue in 2024, considering Joe Biden's double-digit victory here in 2020.
That's... I mean, still could happen. Still could happen. If we get out and vote, we can make it happen. We can make it happen. New Mexico used to be red, so we can make it happen.
Democrats still definitely have an advantage. We also have New Hampshire and Maine, 2 northeastern states that can definitely get very close like they did in 2016. Clinton only carried New Hampshire by 0.37% and Maine by 2.9%. Joe Biden did do much better in 2020, winning both of them by nearly double-digit margins. But in 2024, Kamala Harris is going to win these states by around 3 to 5 percentage points. Harris at just over 200 electoral votes, but for Trump, we have a pretty long list of lean states, starting in North Carolina. This is the only swing state that voted red in both 2016 and 2020. Nevada was the one that Trump never won before, but 8 years ago, he did win North Carolina, along with Georgia, Arizona, and the Blue Wall. In 2020, he lost every single one of those except for North Carolina, and there's no doubt the Tar Heel state is going to stick with him once again. It is going to go red for a 3rd time in favor of the former president. We also have Georgia, 16 electoral votes. This was the closest state in the 2020 election. Joe Biden won it by 0.24%. And yes, Democrats did do very well here in the last election, but this was under extraordinary circumstances that favored the Democratic Party. We had a year-long pandemic. We had an economy that was in recession as a result of the pandemic, and that was the only reason why Joe Biden was able to flip states like Georgia and Arizona, maybe even Wisconsin. If COVID-19 was on a thing, Trump probably would have been reelected 4 years ago.
Come on, man. We know what happened, bro. Come on. Come on, what happened? Come on. Come on. We know what happened. It's not happening this time around. They're coping fact. Because remember, a lot of these things they didn't expect to happen. They didn't expect. They were. The way they were playing politics around is thinking that the American people are this dumb. We are this dumb. We don't understand politics, and for some folks it is. They're kind of dumb. Don't get me wrong. However, what they did in COVID is something that they're gonna pay. They're gonna pay. They're gonna pay. What they did at 3 and 4 in the morning, that thing that went up 90 degrees. I mean, a straight line to heaven. That line, they're gonna pay for it. They're gonna pay for it. And it's I cannot believe, man. There were even recordings. Some of the stations have no camera, and we have. I mean, it's crazy. Like nobody gets. I mean, it's a lot of cowards too. That's another thing. So.
And so Georgia is going to be red on our map. Trump is pretty easily going to win it. It is still fundamentally a red state. 2020 was more of a fluke, really. In 2016, Trump won the state by more than 5 points.
Yeah, we got that.
We also have Arizona. Once again, another very close state from the last election. Kamala Harris simply isn't doing well enough here to actually win. It's a state that Trump won by nearly 4% in 2016. And according to Polymarket's new odds, Donald Trump has a 62% chance at winning Arizona. In fact, his odds are higher here than in both North Carolina and Georgia. Next up in Nevada, this is another state where Trump is doing a lot better than he was 4 years ago. In the polling against Joe Biden, he was supposed to lose the silver state by 5 to 6 points. In the end, Joe Biden didn't even do any better than Hillary Clinton, even though he improved off of her performance in virtually every other state. And so Nevada is shifting to the right. We saw in 2022 Republican Joe Lombardo win the governorship, unseating the incumbent Democrat. And so Donald Trump really has a very good chance at winning a state that no Republican has won in 20 years. And
Dang,
so
that's a lot of years, man. That's a lot of years. And Republicans, they tend to be so lazy, man. They don't do groundwork. During the mid election, they didn't do anything. The 2020 mid election, they didn't do anything. The chairman of the Republican Party, she was a damn feminist, man. Feminist, lazy. She's just there for the position. And it was so bad.
Nevada as being lean red, with Trump winning it by just over 2 percentage points. Moving on now to the Midwest and the 3 blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These are among the most important states in the country. In fact, Pennsylvania is really getting the spotlight now because a lot of people believe that it's going to come down to the Keystone State. And looking at the map in 2016, you'll see why these 3 states are so important. Before 2016, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania were not considered competitive. These 3 states had gone blue for nearly 3 decades before Trump flipped them 8 years ago. And so in 2016, it was these 3 states that won Trump the election. And then in 2020, it was these 3 that won Joe Biden the election when he flipped them back. Joe Biden was supposed to win Pennsylvania, again, by 6 points, Wisconsin by 8, Michigan by 7. In the end, he very narrowly came out with a victory. In fact, if Joe Biden lost Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona, all states that he won by less than 0.7%, he would have lost the election entirely. That was how close 2020 was. And Kamala Harris currently...
Now, noting here some numbers, right? It seems like Texas have now 40 electoral college. In some of the states, they have changed a couple of things here. But the demographic, a lot of these southern states has changed because a lot of people from the north has moved to the south, right? And I think this is a great opportunity for Texas and some of the southern states to move a little bit to the red, right? And also, conservatives, they have to have more kids, man. I always said that, like, have more kids teaching conservatism, and this is how we keep conservatism in the country. This is how we make Democrats move more to, not even to the center, to where we should be, about the Constitution, about American first. We used to be like this years ago, and then, you know, it's very small differences. One party used to believe in more federal regulation, the other one more elites, but in essence, we all believe in low taxes and the Constitution in itself. Right now, man, some of these states, they really worries me. Like, look at this, California, because there's a lot of illegals there. Or for Oregon and Washington, what's up with that? In the Northeast, what's up with that, man? What the hell is wrong with y'all? You guys are this naive or so elitist that you guys cannot understand, man, what's going on? If you guys want to be elitist, that's fine with me. However, you know, it's not the same calling the devil that see him coming. They're gonna put a lot of these illegals in your area, and you guys need to accept them, because you guys are for that. Or third one will be that you guys are naive.
Is performing much worse than he was 4 years ago. So Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, I have going to Trump by just over 2 points. And finally, we're left with just 2 tilt states and 1 congressional district, all of which will be decided by 2 percentage points or less. I'm going to start off by giving Trump the 2nd district of Nebraska, while up in Minnesota, the only reason I'm giving this state to Kamala Harris is because she chose Tim Walz to be her running mate, the state's literal governor. If Joe Biden had stayed in the race, there's no doubt Trump would have came out on top here, a state that no Republican has won in 52 years.
Damn.
And then down in Virginia, considering the new polling that we've gotten over the last few days, Virginia is going to be highly, highly competitive. I would say right now that this state is a pure toss-up. There's still a very good chance that Kamala Harris holds on to the state. Virginia hasn't gone red since 2004. But all things considered, considering Kamala Harris's poor performance in relation to President Biden, and then, of course, the fact that Trump almost always surges in the polling at the very end of the election season, for right now, I'm going to place Virginia into the tilt red column.
Damn. There we go. There we go. That will put him in 326 electorate.
And so based on the new numbers we've gotten, Trump could win up to 326 electoral votes. Kamala Harris at 212. This would be by far the worst Democratic performance since 1988.
Electoral. Wow. See, 1988. That's crazy. Since Ronald Reagan. Wow. Let me see this one more time. Look at that. Oh, almost imagine Minnesota, I'd say yes. That's crazy, man. That's a blowout. That's just a blowout. Wow. Well, folks, there you go. I'm gonna leave the link in the description down below for the original channel. That way you guys can go there and support him. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. See you in the next one.